Who said a musical can't emotionally damage you twice? After a smash hit season at the Donmar Warehouse last summer, this summer sees the return of Next to Normal. This musical had a long gap between Broadway and London. We waited for years to get this musical over here, and when it came, we were all blown away, maybe even more so than that original Broadway production. When I saw it, it was definitely the intimacy of that space that really sold it to me. So when I heard it was transferring to the West End, I was first excited to be able to see it again and to have more audiences witness this show. But I was also a little bit worried, especially knowing that this would be transferring to a much bigger space, the Wyndham's Theatre. So now I've seen it, now they've officially opened, what do I think of Next to Normal in the West End? What do I think this time around? Have the performances improved? And does it work in this slightly bigger space? Let's find out. But if you haven't seen my face before, hi, I'm Ellie, I talk about theatre. I am the most chaotic theatre person on the internet. I do reviews, I do discussions, I do versus brackets and tier lists, and if any of that sounds interesting to you, please consider hitting like and subscribe, it really helps me, it helps the channel. But let's dive into Next to Normal. I'm really happy to say that Next to Normal has made a very good jump from off to on West End. I think most of that is helped by the fact that these performances feel even stronger than the first time I saw it. Now having a full run in their belts and another rehearsal period, these performers are on the top of their game. And there's a lot of little touches that makes Next to Normal feel just as poignant here as it did at the Donmar, so let's talk about it. Next to Normal is a musical all about depression, which feels like a juxtaposition of sorts, but it uses the musicality of it to build the intensity of that story. A story of a family, a mother who is struggling with a kind of unlabeled bipolar disorder, and the family around her. Something that I really picked up from this version that I feel like they've honed into more is the parallels. This is a very well-written story, and through this direction, they have highlighted a lot of the parallels between Dan and Diana's relationship and the relationship between Henry and Natalie. This was something that was evident in the original Donmar production, but now it feels like they've pushed it even further, having each other feel even more present within each other's scenes. As we see what Natalie and Henry could become, we see the glimpses of love from them, and we see how that reflects on Dan and Diana, how their relationship started, and how that's been worn down through the tragedy of their situation. Because I think what I really understand about Next to Normal now, watching it in this production, is that it is a rich exploration of characters. How normal, everyday people react to a tough situation, how they move on, how they try to push through it, and the effects of depression can wear you down. A lot of that comes from the character of Gabe, who is very hard to speak about without spoiling a lot of the show, but I will try my best. His role has such a turn. He is the embodiment of this show's themes of loss and depression, and you see that throughout, not only with how he interacts with Diana, but also how he interacts with the other members of the family. There's such a sinister edge to him, and he carries some of the play's most important moments, like the scene that always just smashes me up towards the end, his final interaction with Dan, which dives into his depression and puts in front of the audience how negatively he has been affected by how he's approached these situations. And the scene towards the end of Act 1, where he speaks to Diana after she's found the box of toys. So manipulative, so dark, so hard-hitting. This story keeps you on the edge of your seat, bringing you through this extremely human journey of people struggling. As things get worse and worse, as more challenges are thrown at them, as it keeps on building and building. It is masterfully done. As you feel helpless, as you see just slowly the cracks start to form and everything comes crumbling down. It is one of the most thrilling, engaging stories that I have seen in musical theatre ever. But I think that is all made stronger by how the music complements this show. As I said previously, it doesn't seem like the most typical topic to make into a musical. But this score is gorgeous, embedding this musical with a really rocky, punchy feel. It's hard to pick out a couple of favorites as I normally do because I feel like I'm going to speak about most of the songs in the show. But Just Another Day is such a perfect introduction. You get the little struggles of this family. You get the day-to-day life. You don't get a full glimpse into it. You get the little minute details you need of their stresses as it builds and builds and builds to the crescendo at the end. Everything else being such an important moment for Natalie, showing how this situation is affecting her performance at school. It's a great moment to get into her mindset as well, her musicality, and how her opinions on the music reflect on her own life. My Psychopharmacologist at Night is brilliant. Such a fantastic number. Really trippily done with staging as well. Everything feeling a little bit off to really make you sympathize with Diana, especially as later into the show she starts to doubt a lot of this type of treatment. There's a real coldness from the delivery from Trevor Dion Nicholas as the Doctor. And I love how this song parallels Dan and Diana a lot as well. The Who's Crazy section giving you an insight into his perspective. I think a lot of this musical's themes are summed up through I Miss the Mountains. A phenomenal ballad that truly makes you understand Diana's perspective on this. How empty she is feeling and how this isn't right for her, as well as just being paired with some of the most gorgeous vocals from Casey Levy. One of the best moments of conflict in the show comes from You Don't Know and I Am the One. This fierce battle between Dan and Diana, using that rocky score and that angst to create this drama between the two, this push and pull in this absolutely giant argument they're having. I'm Alive is so good, so rocky, so punchy. The lyrics in this song are so sinister as well. The more I listen to the song, the more I pick out, the more I love. There's so much fantastic material in this show. A light in the dark providing a softer moment. Something I feel is well needed, especially towards the end of Act 1, to really understand a care from Dan about Diana. And as we go further into Act 2, we see this build and more. We get so many punchy moments like Why Stay? Another great moment that juxtaposes Henry and Natalie's relationship with Dan and Diana's. The reprise of I Am the One, that moment that I spoke about earlier with the final interaction between Gabe and Dan, is so heartbreaking, culminating in the finale. A glimpse of hope. There's so much in this score, so much that works, such a fantastic rocky sound. Utterly fantastic. So let's speak a bit about the journey between the Donmar and the West End, because a lot of this stuff is the same stuff that I could have said in my last review. I actually think that they were very smart with the move between the Donmar and the West End, because when you're going from a space like the Donmar, a fairly small house with people on three sides, to a theatre like the Wyndhams, which is more front on and seats a lot more people, the things you're going to lose from the Donmar is, one, that intimacy. When you were at the Donmar, you could literally see people in that audience reacting to the story. You were in that living room. You were sat amongst that family, and you felt that with the cast, which is something that you can't really get with the West End when you're a little bit further back. This is something that I found with Oklahoma. When Oklahoma went to the same theatre, you could really tell that production was struggling a little bit with some of the moments that were really made and designed for that initial production at the Young Vic, where you were sat on that stage with them, meaning that not everything carried. Here, they've updated a lot of this staging. They've played around with different things to pull out different dynamics. They've adjusted perfectly for the knowledge that now this is not playing 2-3 sides, it's only playing out. And yet the good thing about this production is that I feel like in a way, it still managed to keep that communal sense from the Donmar. Yes, you can't see how other people are reacting, but still, I feel like there is that sense of community, that sense of everyone watching in. As everything comes crumbling down more and more, I feel like having that emotional resonance within that audience, you still feel that weight. And that's all thanks to just little adjustments. Literally the tiniest things that have managed to make this musical still feel as impactful as it did when it was in a theatre with half of the people. Almost feels like it's become a little bit of the best of both worlds. Then there's the design. The design hasn't changed much. It is the same set as at the Wyndhams, with the band in the exact same place, but with the slight adjustment of 2 bookcases being where the audience would have been placed at the Donmar. And now having the entrances be just by those bookcases, instead of coming through the audience like they did at the Donmar. I still adore this set. I think it's a great way of taking something that looks simple and then using little bits of projection to really bring it to life. And I like how it reflects a story. It looks like, from the outside, a normal everyday house. You've got your bookcases, you've got a staircase. But then using that projection, you start to see the cracks form. The revolve is still there in the middle. It feels a little bit smaller in this venue than it did at the Donmar, but they still use a lot of the same lighting effects on it and the same projection to really bring the space to life. Actually, it feels like they've got a little bit more projection this time, but that might just be because I watched it from the sidelines last time. One of my favorite effects that they use is during the first number, where when Diana's starting to really struggle towards the end of Just Another Day, they use a bit of projection or a little light that just highlights the revolve that she's on that starts to shake ever so slightly. There's a real instability to a lot of the projection design that really brings this space to life, as well as the clever uses of lighting here and there. The corners of the walls having these lights that can flash on, adding extra depth to this house, especially as the tension starts to rise. It's one of my favorite bits of design in this entire show is a moment with Gabe in Act 2, where he's standing behind one of the glass windows, and all you can see is his shadow. Starts very faded. You really can't make him out. But as he comes more and more into focus, he looks more like a child. Really bringing you into that moment as Diana starts to remember and starts to repicture him. There's so many wonderful little touches with this set, with the design, with the projection, with the lighting, that just really brings this show to life. And then there is this cast. They have gone from strength to strength. You feel even more of the emotions come through with their performances. They were already fantastic before and perfectly cast, but they've somehow refined it. Casey Levy as Diana is wonderful. She brings across the pain. She brings across the hurt. She carries such a weight in her performance of how much this all is on her. And her vocal performances are so good. I Miss the Mountains is so powerful thanks to her, carrying all of the emotional weight of that number and bringing it all to a head with that final belting section. Jamie Parker as Dan, I really, really like this time watching it, how much more I got out of his story. Dan as a character to me is someone who is so determined to help everyone else and so determined to move on that he's completely ignoring the effects that it's had on him. He is not facing his depression. He's not facing his struggles, his trauma. And he, like a lot of men, are trying to sweep it under the rug. And that's what Parker delivers so well. That man who is struggling, who is desperately trying to ignore it. He believes he's doing the right thing. He truly does. And you get that honesty through his performance. Honestly, his final moments in the show just utterly break my heart. Eleanor Worthington Cox as Natalie is cynical. She is probably the most deadpan in the show, being very blunt. And you can really see how this situation shaped her as a person, especially as we start to see her interact with someone outside the family. Henry, played by Jack Afrisio. There's a wonderful connection between the pair, and Afrisio's Henry just comes off as so sweet. Jack Wolf as Gabe gives such a powerful performance. You see this character go from really lovable and sweet to the complete opposite. Manipulative, dangerous, dark, sinister. Jack Wolf manages to deliver all of that with such power, as well as delivering one of the strongest vocal performances of the night in I'm Alive. The impact of this number being helped with Jack performing this through a microphone, a handheld mic that gives it an even rockier feel, as Jack takes center stage with his full presence. He gets the most variety in this show, managing to deliver so many different sides of Gabe, all of them feeling so truthful. It is a powerhouse performance. And finally, there's Trevor Dion Nicholas as the Doctor, a smaller role in this show, but one that is given so much weight from Trevor Dion Nicholas. I love the contrast between the two Doctors he plays, the first one being just so cold, so unmoving, and the little moments of real care we get from the second one. I love the little interaction we get between Dan and that Doctor towards the end of the musical. A really human moment between the two. This cast just dived into this material even further. They have built in it, and I think I'm safe in saying that this is one of the best casts in a musical in the West End right now. Next to Normal is just this heart-shattering exploration of a family struggling with mental health. It is brutally honest, and the way it unfolds is so masterfully done. It has not lost any of the oomph that it had when it was at the Donmar. It is a phenomenal piece of theatre, and you must go and see it. But what do you think? Have you seen Next to Normal on Broadway, off West End at the Donmar, or now at the Wyndham's Theatre? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. If you did enjoy this video, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It really helps me, it helps the channel. Here's some links to some other videos on screen right now, and a link to my Instagram if you want to drop me a follow over there. I also have links to other socials and a merch store in the description down below. But that's it for me today, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.